Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the 18th edition of Texas Longhorns here live. I am your host, Matthew Miller. We are 5 days away from kickoff. We have made it, ladies and gentlemen, 5 days away, 12 days away for Texas, but the season is finally upon us, and that means this, guys, 18th edition, and it's prediction time. Time to set it all out here, see how much I can get right on this season in the SEC, college football playoff, and in general. But before I get into that and also a recruiting update, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out with what we're trying to build here. I really appreciate it, guys. Also, if you're going to use Amazon, much like I do, much like everybody does, go down in the description, get that Amazon link, costs you $0, puts a little bit of change in Mark's pocket, so it really helps out him. So go down there in the description and use that link. Also, we have a fantastic USC show with Matt and Tim on the USC channel, so please go over there, subscribe, watch that tonight. I tune in quite often. Obviously, they're getting prepared because next Sunday, guys, they will be playing LSU. So it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm definitely going to be tuning into that because it doesn't have SEC ramifications, but it allows me to see a little bit into what I believe LSU will be going into the season or going down into the season, because that will be the first game. So please hit that like button and subscribe over there as well. And we have a fantastic SEC channel. I'm sure my predictions will be put up there. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate in the comments from certain teams, but who cares? It is what it is. Let's talk recruiting update, and then we will get into predictions. Very busy week for the Texas Longhorns. They just lost a big-time commitment in Cade Phillips, the defensive back from a high school out of Texas. It stinks, guys, because that is the one position group. Currently, we have one guy in the secondary room, and that is Caleb Chester. I really like him. He's a 3-star recruit, but we're not killing it there. Blake Gideon and Terry Joseph need to step it up on the recruiting trail, and it's going to be a busy week for him because there's 2 guys, and we'll start out there, I guess. Jonah Williams, 5-star recruit. August 24th is his decision date, and so in 5 days, I will be here live, or we will have a video up on that if he does decide to come to the University of Texas. A couple months ago, people did not think this was possible. People thought he was either going to go to A&M or LSU, and he wasn't really interested in Texas. And it's because he's a great baseball player, and he didn't really get along with David Pierce. Well, things changed big time a couple months ago when Texas hired Jim Schlossnagle from A&M, fired David Pierce. He brings that relationship over to Texas with him, and they connected. He has good rapport with Steve Sarkisian and the staff. So Texas is firmly in the mix here. I think it's going to be either LSU or Texas. A&M and Oregon are lingering, but all of his family are high-level athletes, and none of them have left the state of Texas to play college football or college baseball. So I fully expect Jonah Williams to either pick between Texas A&M, but who knows? He could be a trailblazer. I'm surprised he's even deciding to play college football because he's such a damn good pitcher, guys. He's throwing 95 off the mound, and he's a left-hander, and he's going to get drafted. So it's a surprising pick to me that he's already choosing college football over he's choosing college football over professional baseball. So who knows what he decides August 24th? It's a coin flip. It's a coin flip. I'm not going to go either way here, guys. I don't know. I put it at a coin flip for right now. The other guy that is very important as well is quarterback 3-star Aiden Anning out of Ruston, Louisiana. LSU came in late on him, and now they have 4 guys committed in the secondary class, along with Cade Phillips, who they just flipped from Texas. I want this guy. I think this guy has a lot of high upside. That's kind of like what our whole class is, honestly, right now, is guys with a tremendous amount of upside. And if this class, or if all our guys on staff can make these guys better, like I think they can, we're going to have a hell of a recruiting class. This guy's a multiple sport athlete. He's a great basketball player. So I think LSU, for whatever reason, got in late on this game, and I think they're dumb for doing so. But guess what, guys? They still may win out on the end and getting him, so it may not have hurt him at all anyways. He's down to Arkansas, he's down to Texas, and he's down to LSU. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think here. I don't know, because he did take the visit to LSU when he didn't have to, and they got him on campus. And if they land him, guys, we're talking about a fantastic secondary class for them. DJ Pickett, they just flipped Cade Phillips from us. They could steal Aiden Anning from us. I honestly think Texas is probably, I think there's 33% on all three of these. That's where I'm going here. I have no idea. I think it's 33% on each. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes anywhere of the three of LSU, Texas, and Arkansas, but I'm hoping Texas can land them. That is also August 24th. The one that is coming up the soonest, and unfortunately, I do not think Texas wins this one, and it's very unfortunate because this is a definite position of need, is five-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. I think he ends up at Oklahoma. And this stinks, guys. To me, this was after DeCorian Moore, he was number 2 in the class. And once DeCorian Moore went to Oregon, he was the number 1 priority for me. And I just don't think we're going to end up with him. And it kind of stinks because Steve Sarkisian, up until this year, guys, has been killing it in guys he needs. He went out and got an Anthony Hill when they needed him. He went out and got an Arch Manning when they needed him. He went out and got a Kelvin Banks when they needed him. Michael Fasusi's probably not going to end up at Texas. He's probably going to end up at Oklahoma. It's going to be Oklahoma, A&M, or Texas. I think it's more Oklahoma at this point. I think if I had to do percentage-wise, I'm saying 70% Oklahoma, 20% Texas, 10% Texas A&M. Outside shots for Missouri and Oregon. I don't see that happening. He gave a couple visits to Florida because his lead recruiter at A&M went to Florida. I think those were like, hey, I'll throw you a bone type visits. I don't see him going to Florida. I think he ends up at Oklahoma, and that's very unfortunate because you're missing out on him, but you're also missing out on him and a rival. But again, August 21st, I will be here if he comes to Texas. Next up, August 23rd. This is a guy that I do think is trending towards Texas. In my opinion, he's probably first or second on this list of the 5 guys that and 3 or 4 I've named already, of guys where I expect him, out of all the guys I've listed so far, I expect him as the most likely to Texas. It is the big 4-star offensive tackle, Nick Brooks, out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. He was moving to Georgia, though. That's not a big deal. He lived there originally. He's from there. It's going to come down to Texas over in Georgia, but I think Texas is prioritizing him right now over more than Georgia is. So I think Texas probably leads here 60. I would go 60% Texas, 30% Georgia, 10% USC. Georgia's obviously got a couple days here to come up and tell him, hey, we really want you, man. Why don't you play here? Why don't you stay in your home state, basically, of Georgia? This guy is huge. He's 6'7", 360 to 380 pounds. Now you're asking yourself, is that too big to play offensive tackle? It may be, but it's not too big to play offensive line. I think even if he's not an offensive tackle, he can get an offensive guard. I think he'd be great at that. And this is the type of guy Kyle Flood wants. He says it all the time. I want big humans that I can mold. This is a big human you can mold. Fantastic get if they can get him. I do think he's the most likely out of the ones I've named so far. This guy, I think he's right in the same ballpark with Nick Brooks, and that is 5-star wide receiver Jamie French. I told people whenever I heard Miami was in this recruitment, I said, watch out for Miami. Watch out for Miami. We know how Miami spends in NIL. We know what Jamie French's priority is because Jamie French has said relationships and money. He's flat out said that. He said his dream NIL deal was a Lambo. Well, Texas has that, but I'm pretty sure Miami can get him that as well. And Miami throws bags, guys. So it would not shock me if he does end up in Miami. He went on a visit there a couple weeks ago. He loved it. They made up some ground. I still think Texas leads. I think it's 50% Texas, 40% Miami. And I'll give Tennessee a 10% chance just because I'm a nice guy. But I think this is Texas and Miami. I think Texas has to hold off Miami, and Miami's got 11 days. So it's going to be very interesting here. Again, busy couple weeks, next 2 weeks for Texas, 5 guys on the hook. I will be here for all of them when they do break, if they do break for Texas's way. In a perfect scenario here, guys, Texas lands 4 out of 5 of these guys. In all likelihood, I think they land 2. I think they land Nick Brooks, and then I think they either land Aiden Anning or Jamie French. I think Jonah Williams is a possibility too. Honestly, guys, I changed my mind. I think they can land 3. I think they can land Nick Brooks, Jonah Williams, then either Aiden Anning or Jamie French. If they land 4 out of 5, this is a great month for Texas. We have catapulted ourselves in probably, I don't know, top 8, top 9 class right at the moment. So that's a good job and good recovery by the Texas staff going into the season. I think, like I said, the recruiting cycle this year is going to be crazy. I think you're going to see the most flips you've ever seen because of NIL mostly, but also because these guys are leveraging their situations right now, which I guess still has to do with NIL, but it's going to be very interesting, guys. That is the recruiting update. Again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. trying to grow this channel. I want 3,500 subscribers by the end of the year. That's 800 subscribers. I think we can do that. So please share this out. Please like the videos. Please like the content. Thank you guys very much for that. Also, if you're going to shop, use the link in the description. Does not change your buying experience at all. Does nothing to change your buying experience. Does nothing on the Amazon site. All it does is change what is put in a Mark's pocket, which is just a couple bucks here and there, and it doesn't come from you at all. It just comes from Amazon. So please do that, guys. It really helps out Mark, really helps out the channel, and share and subscribe all of Mark Rogers content here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to share. Now, we're going to get into predictions for this year into college football. Guys, remember, I ranked every room in the SEC. I ranked every room in the SEC. Sorry, I'm trying to – there we go. By points. And basically what I did, if you guys haven't been here, I've been ranking coach's room, wide receiver room, quarterback room, tight end room, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, and secondary. I've ranked them all. I didn't get to secondary. We're not going to get into that today. I ranked them. I have it here. You don't have to worry about it. And basically, I gave you a point total. If you're ranked 16th, you got 16 points. If you're ranked first, you got 1 point. You want to have the lowest points. So when I did the math, broke this down and put this to paper, on my paper, this is how it turned out. Georgia's in first place, and honestly, they're way ahead of what I thought they were going to be. Georgia has 15 points. The next closest is I do have Texas, but there is a drop-off here. It's kind of funny. There are tier systems here. Number 2 is Texas with 36 points. Number 3 is Alabama with 46 points. Ole Miss is number 4 with 51 points. Oklahoma is number 5 with 57 points. Number 6 is LSU with 61 points. Then I think it kind of drops off here again. And you have Kentucky with 71 points, A&M with 77 points, Missouri with 78 points, Tennessee with 79 points. Then it drops off a little bit again. Auburn with 88 points, Florida with 90 points, and Arkansas with 97 points. And then here's another slight drop off. South Carolina with 109 points. And then there's even a drop off here. Mississippi State, 128 points, and Vanderbilt with 131 points. So that is how, when I ranked the rooms and I added points based on where they were ranked, that is how it turned out. Those are not my predictions. That's how I ranked the rooms and how the points ended up. Honestly, again, guys, just like the Big 12 last year, pretty damn close to what I'm going to predict. Because here are my predictions. These are my official SEC put them on pen predictions for the year. My predictions for the SEC. People are going to hate it. Go ahead. Hey, John. Thank you for being here. Number 1, I do have Texas. Texas, I have at 11-1, 7-1 in the SEC. Their one loss being to Kentucky. I believe in this team because of the guy at the quarterback position. I believe Quinn Ewers is going to take that next step. If Quinn Ewers does not take that next step, I think Texas probably ends up 9-3. I believe he does take the next step. Again, guys, if you don't like what I'm saying, again, because I know this is going to be cut up and put on the SEC channel, and it will get way more views over there than it is currently getting. Explain to me why your scenario plays out, because I'm going to explain to you mine, what I believe will happen. Next up, number 2. And by the way, this is on the SEC. This isn't on me. I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-team tie for second place. I repeat, 5-team tie for second place. And guess what? The SEC has zero tiebreakers so far. They have 0 tiebreakers with 12 days to go until the season. I don't know what to do, so this is who I put in the SEC championship game versus Texas. Alabama. I think people are overrating what happened to Alabama this offseason. They still have one of the 4 to 5 most talented rosters. I think Kalen Bohr is a better offensive coach than almost anyone Nick Saban has ever had other than Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. I think the defense they can keep, I don't think they're going to be as good as Saban's heydays, but the last couple of years, I do believe Alabama can be as good on that side of the ball. And I think they go 10-2. I believe they beat Georgia at home this year. And I can run down the schedules because I have it broken down. So Alabama, I have their 2 losses being at Tennessee and at Oklahoma. Those are the 2 losses I have for Alabama. I believe they beat LSU. I believe they beat Missouri. And I believe they beat Georgia at home. Those are like their big games. I'm trying to think. Auburn at the end, I guess, too. So I have Alabama at 10-2. Number 3, I have Georgia. And everyone's going to give me shit just like they did last year. I said Georgia wasn't going to make the college football playoff last year. It'll be tough for you to find anyone else that predicted that. I guarantee you don't find anyone else that predicted that. You have to take chances with these things, guys, because it's not copy and paste every year. I have Georgia at 3. Georgia, their 2 losses. I'll read them off to you. I have Georgia losing at Texas, and I have Georgia losing at Alabama. I do believe they win the other big game they have on the road at Ole Miss, and I believe they win versus Tennessee at home. Those are the big games. So I have Georgia at number 3 on the year. Number 4, I have Ole Miss. And this is where Ole Miss, I'm going to give you a sneak preview right now, barely sneaks into my playoff. And there's 4 or 5 teams competing for that number 11 spot where I have Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a really good team, but the problem is I don't trust Lane Kiffin to win the big games. Ole Miss right now, I have at 10-2, like I said, and I have them losing to LSU at LSU, and I'll tell you why. Ole Miss plays 7 games in a row. That is their last game before a bye, and LSU is catching them right before that bye. That is the reason why I have them losing that one. I also have them losing versus Georgia, like I said, and those are really their only 2 hard games. They play Wake Forest. They play Kentucky. They play at South Carolina, which is a trap game. I'm a little bit higher on South Carolina than most people because I believe in Lenore Sells and Nick Harbor on offense, and I think the defense will be pretty good as well. They beat at Florida. So Ole Miss's schedule is very weak. That's why 10-2 for them. There's certain teams at 10-2 that may not get in the playoffs. Ole Miss is one of those. I have Tennessee at 9-3 and 6-2 in the SEC. Their 2 losses are Oklahoma and Georgia. I really believe in Nico. I really believe in this offense. Mike, the question for me is defense, especially the secondary. I don't really love the secondary and the linebackers. And I also don't know about the running back situation. Now, Heupel's a genius on offense. He's going to scheme things up for Nico to make it easier on him. And I think they will be fine in the long run. That is why I have him at number 5. But that is what I have him at number 5. Honestly, guys, there's a debate here, and I'll list my next teams out too when I get to the playoff. Tennessee is going to be one of those teams. Tennessee at 9-3. And Ole Miss at 10-2, personally, how I would do it, again, I'm projecting what I believe the committee will do when I do this to some extent when we get to the playoff. I think Tennessee should get in over Ole Miss. Tennessee has a harder schedule. They would have better wins at that point, and their losses would be basically the same. Actually, they'd have better losses, in my opinion. So I would have Tennessee in, even at 9-3. LSU, I also have at 9-3 and 6-2 in the SEC. Let's see here. Let's get to if I can find it on this piece of paper. LSU, I have losses at Florida and versus Alabama. Those are their only 2 losses in the SEC. I also have them losing to USC opening weekend, so I have them at 9-3. I debated them losing at Arkansas for the longest time because I thought Arkansas could steal a game, but I decided not to go with it. So that is my sixth place team. I'm a team behind. Number 7, I have Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's 8-4. I think Oklahoma, like I said, in the point system, came in 5th place. I have them at 7th here. I think Oklahoma probably is the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC, but the problem is their schedule's the hardest in the SEC other than Florida. So I have them at number 7. I have them at 8-4 and 4-4 in the conference. I have, let's see, get to Oklahoma's schedule here. Give me 1 second. I have Oklahoma losing at Auburn. I have them losing to Texas. I have on a neutral side, obviously. I have them losing at Ole Miss, and I have them losing at LSU. So I have Oklahoma at number 7. Number 8, I have Missouri at 4-4 and 8-4 in the SEC. This is my biggest disappointing team. I just believe Missouri got very lucky last year in certain situations. Guys, they should have lost to Kansas State. If they don't have one of the best kicks in the history of college football, a 61-yard kick from a college kicker is very rare and very unheard of. They lose that game. That's a loss. If Florida doesn't leave Luther Burden running wide open, that's a loss. I just think they disappoint this year. That's my opinion. You can explain to me why I'm wrong in the comments. I do like Eli Drinkowitz. I like what they bring in the running backs and Noel, and I forget the other guy. But the transfer running backs they bring in with Brady Cook in the offense, and the offensive line I think is going to be pretty good as well. But the defense is going to take a step back, and I think that there was a lot of luck there last year. So I have Missouri at 8-4 and 4-4 in the SEC. That is my opinion on that. You guys can disagree with it if you want to. Again, leave your comments. I'm very interested in what everyone else thinks on this. I have Missouri losing versus Auburn at Alabama, versus Oklahoma, and at South Carolina. So I actually have 4 losses in a row towards the end of the season for Missouri, but then they bounce back and beat Mississippi State and Arkansas to finish the season. Let's go to the comments real quick. Don't forget, we'll be doing some crossover content. Yes, on both the Michigan Wolverines live and the Michigan Call-In Show before the game. Yes, a lot of crossover content. I'm super excited for that. I'm trying to get to what you guys have over there at the Michigan channel. We need to get more growth here. It's really hard to do on this channel for whatever reason. Maybe I suck. I don't know. Leave that in the comments if you believe. Believe me, I'm open to anything, guys. So banners. Let's see here. Go back to this. Number 9, I have Auburn. I also have, what do they have? I have them at. I have Auburn at 8-4 and 4-4. Oh, guys, there's a lot of 4-4 teams in the SEC. I have Auburn at 8-4 and 4-4 overall in the SEC. I have them losing versus or at Georgia, at Kentucky, versus Texas A&M, and at Alabama for 8-4, which is a good season for them. And then rounding out the next 2 to 8-4 teams. My God, there's a lot of them. And like I said, there's a tiebreaker. So kind of these are in no particular order because there's about 6 teams here with this logjam. Number 10, I have Kentucky at 8-4 and 4-4 overall in the SEC. I have them losing to South Carolina, to Georgia, to Ole Miss, at Ole Miss, and at Tennessee for their 4 losses. For number 10, Kentucky. Number 11, I have Texas A&M at 8-4 and 4-4 in the SEC. I believe A&M loses to Missouri, LSU, South Carolina, and Texas. So that puts them at 4-4, and that is the last 4-4 team in the SEC. The next team we get to, South Carolina. I think they go 7-5 and or no, sorry, they also go 4-4 and 4-4 in the SEC. So what is that? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams going 4-4 in the SEC, guys. I think the middle of this conference is very, very good. Obviously, people should know that by now. LSU lost for South Carolina, so one of their 4 losses. Mississippi, one of their 4 losses. Bama, one of their 4 losses, and Oklahoma is their last loss in the SEC. Next up, we fall off a little bit of a cliff here. I have Florida. I have Florida at 6-6 overall and 2-6 in the SEC. I think Florida's going to be better than people think. I think they have a good roster. They just have an hellacious schedule, as everyone knows to this point. Their last 5 games are insane, guys. I have a loss at Tennessee. I have a loss versus Kentucky. I have a loss versus Georgia. I have a loss versus Texas. I have a win versus LSU. I have a loss at Ole Miss, and I have a win at Florida State. So I actually have them winning 2 of what? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last, they have 6 really hard games at the end. I am going 2-4 in those games. And I have a loss versus Texas A&M. I almost forgot that one. So those are their 6 losses, guys. 1 versus A&M, 2 versus Tennessee, 3 versus Kentucky, 4 versus Georgia, 5 versus Texas, 6 versus Ole Miss. Those are their 6 losses for Florida. 6-6 overall. Or 2-6 in the SEC. 6-6 overall. Texas A&M shouldn't even be in the top 25. If Texas A&M goes 8-4, I think they're a borderline top 25 team, Jackson. If you're saying going into the season, I think that's fair. Let's see here. Number 14 in the SEC, I have Mississippi State. Mississippi State, I have 4-8 overall, 1-7 in the SEC. I have a loss versus Arizona State. I have a loss versus Florida. I have a loss at Texas. I have a loss at Georgia. I have a loss versus Texas A&M. I have a loss at Tennessee. I have a loss versus Missouri. And I have a loss versus Ole Miss, guys. Their wins come versus Eastern Kentucky, Toledo, Arkansas, and UMass. 4 wins, one of them in the SEC versus Arkansas, and that is it. Number 15, I have Arkansas here, guys. I have Arkansas going 3-9 and 0-8 in the SEC. I think Arkansas is done with Sam Pittman, and I think will be thrown in the trash very soon here. Their only 3 wins I have are Arkansas Pine Bluff, UAB, and Louisiana Tech. That is it. I think they could possibly win Mississippi State, but it's at Mississippi State, and I think they could possibly win at Oklahoma State. At best, that's a 5-win team. And number 16, as they are every freaking year, Vanderbilt at 2-10 and 0-8 in the SEC. What do you know? Vanderbilt sucks. Vanderbilt, I have losing versus Virginia Tech, losing versus Missouri, losing versus Alabama, losing at Kentucky, losing versus Ball State, losing versus Texas, losing at Auburn, losing versus South Carolina, losing at LSU, and losing versus Tennessee. So Vandy rounds it out, guys. So those are regular season. So I have Texas and Alabama in the SEC championship game, and we'll get into my playoff predictions in a second before I jump into your comments. Again, yes, if you love exclusive live streams, watch parties, predictions, betting advice, and insider looks, go over to the Patreon, subscribe there. Those guys do a fantastic job. And also, we do a live call-in show at the end of Sunday night, talking that week's college football game. So go over there, check that out, subscribe. You can join in on that. And you can also become a member at the Voice of College Football, so please do that as well. Thank you, Jackson, for that. And again, guys, like and subscribe like it's saying there. So those are my SEC predictions. Here are my college football playoff predictions. And we're going to come in for some hot stuff. And I hope John's still joining us because he's going to love this. I'm coming in spicy with the first one. Number one, the number one overall seed, the winners of the Big Ten Conference, Penn State. Penn State's going to win the Big Ten this year. I think Drew Allard takes that next jump. I think Andy Koldenicki was the best hire of any team, assistant coach-wise, from Kansas. What he did with Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean at Kansas, fantastic job. Him and Lance Leipold did a fantastic job, and I think that's going to translate over to Penn State. I think they have a great running back room with Singleton, and I forget the other guy's name, but also Allard at quarterback. I think their offensive line is going to be pretty good, even with losing Olu Fashanu at the tackle position. I think their defense is and always going to be good under James Franklin. I think Penn State does it this year. I think Penn State wins the Big Ten. If they don't do it this year, I will never pick them to win the conference ever again. I think this is my – did I predict – I don't think – no, I predict Michigan to win the Big Ten last year. I had Penn State second. I think they win the conference this year. I really do. I have Penn State because I even went through their schedule because I didn't want to, think or make you guys think I was trolling you. I am 11-1 and 8-1 in the Big Ten. I have their only loss at Wisconsin. That is the only loss I have them. I think they're going to lose one of these games at USC, at Wisconsin, back to back. They're going to lose one of them. I have them losing to Wisconsin. Could lose either one. I don't think everyone's blowing up and hyping up West Virginia. West Virginia is going to fall down back to earth this year. I think Penn State wins that game rather easily. Now, I will say this. It is week one. Crazy things go on, so maybe it's not as easy as I think, but I still think Penn State wins that game. But other than that, this is a very easy schedule. You have UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State at home, obviously a tough game, but I think they do win that game because I do not believe in Will Howard. And we'll talk about that if you guys want to. Yes, I would love to get to 1,000 followers. We're not even – Jackson, can you get me to 500 followers? Give me 500. I'm only at like 110, so that would really help out. But Penn State is my number one seed in the college football playoff. Number two, my winners of the SEC championship game. I do not have Texas winning the SEC championship game until Steve Sarkisian beats Kalen DeBoer. I think Alabama beats Texas in the SEC championship game. Alabama is my second seed. My third seed is the winners out of the Big 12 Conference, Kansas State, with new look quarterback Avery Johnson taking over for Will Howard, who's now the quarterback at Ohio State. I have them as my third seed. And number four, another surprise pick here. I have North Carolina State with Grayson McCall at quarterback winning the ACC. So I have my top four seeds: Penn State, Alabama, Kansas State, North Carolina State. Now we get into what the committee will decide. Honestly, these may not be in order, but I'm pretty confident these will be the teams. Number five, I do have Texas. I think Texas does get that fifth spot. In my opinion, this is the spot I want. If I can't get the 1 seed, I want the 5 seed. So Texas gets that fifth spot. Number six, I do have Oregon because they go 11-1 during the regular season. They make the Big Ten championship game, but they lose to Penn State in it. So I'm taking Oregon at number six. Number seven, I have Georgia. Georgia will be my seventh team. I think Georgia has a fantastic year. I think, honestly, once they get in the playoff, they'll be a rolling chainsaw, rolling buzzsaw, whatever you want to call them. They are number seven. Number eight, I do have Ohio State making it after a 10-2 regular season. I think they lose at Oregon and at Penn State and miss out on the Big Ten championship game, but they will make the college football playoff. Number nine, this is the one I'm probably least confident in, Miami. I don't think Florida State makes it because of DJU. I do not trust that. I don't think Clemson makes it because I don't know if they have enough playmakers on the outside. So I went with Miami here. They are another at-large team. Also, they have a Charmin soft poo-poo schedule here. So that is the reason why I have number 9, Miami. Number 10, John, if you're sticking around, I do have your Michigan Wolverines at 10-2. I believe they lose to Texas and they lose to Ohio State, but they do beat Oregon. That is Oregon's one loss during the regular season for me is at Michigan. So I have Michigan at number 10. Number 11, I have Ole Miss, and I'll just skip over that so we can talk about that a little bit. Number 12, I have Memphis. That is my non-Power 4 conference winner. That is who will get an automatic placement into the college football playoff. It is Memphis. Number 11, this is the last seed that can really be taken up by anyone. It's between, like I said, Tennessee and Ole Miss. I personally would put Tennessee at 9-3 and over a 10-2 Ole Miss with that very easy schedule. I think Notre Dame is in the running here. I think Iowa's in the running here. I think Utah, who is the loser of my Big 12 championship game, is in the running here. But I did go with Ole Miss. So I think those are the other teams that are left out. Tennessee, Utah, Notre Dame, and Iowa are the 4 big left out here for that 11 spot. I would put Ole Miss behind most of those teams. I think the only team I would put them ahead of is Notre Dame. Every other team I would put in. Again, I'm saying what I believe the committee will do, and I have Ole Miss at number 11. So, guys, that would give you, in the first round, Texas versus Memphis, Oregon versus Ole Miss, Georgia versus Michigan. That would be a hell of a game. All these would be fantastic games. And Ohio State versus Miami. That's a hell of a first-round weekend. Think about this. Ohio State and Miami at the Horseshoe. Texas and Memphis at Texas. Oregon at Ole Miss at Oregon. Michigan at Georgia. And Miami at Ohio State. That is a hell of a first round, a hell of a first weekend for the college football playoff and its 12-team inaugural season. That will be a fun weekend. I hope Kansas win the Big 12. Jackson, I put Kansas up there. I really thought about picking Kansas. If you could guarantee me Jalen Daniels' health, I would pick Kansas. The only reason I didn't pick Kansas is because of that. I picked Kansas to go in the Big 12 championship game last year. So that would have been I'm on board with you. How are you feeling about the running back depth? I'm only concerned about picking up blitzes and picking up in pass protection. That's all I'm concerned about. I'm not really concerned about them running the ball. We have talent there. They'll be fine with that. I like Texas over Memphis. Of course, Texas would beat the out of Memphis. Memphis doesn't deserve to be on the same field as Texas in that game. Okay, so here we go. I have Texas beating Memphis. I have Oregon beating Ole Miss. I'm going to be honest with you. I have all the home teams winning here. I have Georgia beating Michigan. And I have Ohio State beating Miami. So this is what it sets up like. Texas would play North Carolina State, my ACC winner. Kansas State would play Oregon, the Big Ten runner-up. I almost said Pac-12 runner-up. Bama would play UGA, 7 versus 10. And Penn State would play Ohio State. So that is a rematch. I would have Texas beating North Carolina State. I would have Oregon beating Kansas State. I have Georgia pulling the upset over Alabama in a rematch after Bama beating them in the regular season. And I have Ohio State beating Penn State in a rematch after Penn State beating them in the regular season. I have Ohio State versus Texas and Georgia versus Oregon in the Final Four, guys. That is my Final Four. I have Michigan cheering and not in the playoffs. I have them in the playoffs. Cheating. Oh, that's funny. I hope Colorado wins it. Yeah, they'll be lucky to win 6 games, Corey. So I have Ohio State versus Texas, and I have Georgia versus Oregon. I have Ohio State beating Texas, unfortunately, and I have Georgia beating Oregon, and that sets up Ohio State versus Georgia in the national championship game. So I got to the same conclusion that everyone has. I just have different results beforehand. I'm going to have Georgia winning 3 out of 4 of the last national championships. They beat Ohio State in the national championship game. So those are my predictions. I will run down them for you real quick. I have number 1, Penn State, number 2, Alabama, number 3, Kansas State, number 4, NC State, number 5, Texas, number 6, Oregon, number 7, UGA, number 8, Ohio State, number 9, Miami, number 10, Michigan, number 11, Ole Miss, number 12, Memphis. I have Texas beating Memphis. I have Oregon beating Ole Miss. I have Georgia beating Michigan. I have Ohio State beating Miami. That sets up Texas versus North Carolina State, Kansas State versus Oregon, Bama versus UGA, and Penn State versus Ohio State. I have Ohio State beating Penn State. I have Georgia beating Bama. I have Oregon beating Kansas State. I have Texas beating North Carolina State. That sets up OSU versus Texas and Georgia versus Oregon. I have Ohio State beating Texas and Georgia beating Oregon. I have UGA over Ohio State in the national championship game. That is my opinion on this season, guys. That wraps up my predictions for the SEC, the college football playoff, and all of that stuff here, guys, on Mark Rogers TV, the 18th edition of Texas Longhorns here live. Again, subscribe, like the content down below, bring your friends, family. I will be here after every Texas game, every one of them. I'm here, bringing you live. I take that back. I'm missing one. It's for a wedding. I believe it's UTSA. That's the only game I'm missing. Every other game I will be here. I will be here breaking down Steve Sarkisian's press conferences and any breaking news, including recruiting. There are 5 guys that could come to Texas in the next 2 weeks. I will be here breaking it down. We will definitely dive in deep into the Michigan game, very deep. We will have a call-in show. So please subscribe, like the content, share it out, be here. Those are my predictions. Let's go back to your comments real quick. Ohio State plays Michigan for a natty, and Ryan Day can't get a win still. That would be pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. Do it live at the wedding. I might be able to do that. I might sneak off and do it. We'll have to see. But again, subscribe, like the content, share it out. Get us to 3,000. I want us at 3,500 subscribers by the end of the season. That is my goal. That is 800 subscribers. I think we can do it. We're going to do a lot more content here. So please like and subscribe. Let's get Texas football at the Voice of College Football up to 3,000 subs. 5 guys can come, but how many decommits? Yeah, that's true. Like I said, Corey, it's going to be crazy. I think there's going to be a lot of commits, a lot of decommits. I don't care until the paint is dry. That's how I'm looking at this. I think it's a whole wild, wild west of recruiting in college football, but it is fun to cover and fun to talk about with you guys. This has been the 18th edition of Texas Longhorns here live. This has been prediction time. This is going to get cut up on the SEC channel, so go over there and subscribe as well. Please go over there and subscribe. We're trying to get that channel to 1,000 subs. And also, go over and subscribe to watch the USC show at 10 with Matt, Tim, and Mark. And remember, guys, like and subscribe this content. And also, use the Amazon link in the description. It doesn't save you any money, doesn't cost you any money, but it gives a little bit of change into Mark's pocket. Please do that as well. Thank you guys for being here. I am Matthew Miller, your host. There's my X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Go over there and subscribe. This has been the 18th edition. Predictions are in. They're written in stone. Let's see how many I'm right on. Hook 'em, guys.